Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Ridwan Farid, and in this video, I will explain about a mind map that I created a week ago actually. The mind map that I have been created is about English technology and other teaching equipments. If you plan to become a teacher and you want some materials to use in your classroom, you can use my mind map. Anyway, my mind map is like this, but as you can see, it's pretty bad. I have a cheap, crappy printer over there. You cannot see it, but uh, the coloring of my printer is run out, and the cartridge of the coloring is what am I saying this. So yeah, the quality of the mind map on my piece of paper is pretty bad, and the words are also very small for you to see, and my face camera quality is also pretty bad. So I'm gonna use my computer screen to show you and explain to you the mind map that I have created a week ago. So yeah, let's just jump into it. So over here we have a mind map which explains English technology and other teaching equipments starting from here. And well, I'm gonna explain about pictures and images, the board, computers, overhead projector, bits and pieces, language laboratory, and materials for classroom use. I'm gonna start from here, picture and images. Picture and images are pretty explanatory. It's a drawing or picture or images uh, that can be used by teacher to explain about English language or any kinds of anything. You can use picture and images to show almost anything as long as you have the pictures or the images. The example of pictures and images used mainly in classrooms are flashcards, which is small cards for individual students. This works best when the students intend to study on their own, so they can use flashcards to study on their own. So the next is illustrations, which mainly found in textbooks, and the third is cue cards, which are small cards for group work, and the last is large wall pictures, which is pretty explanatory. A large pictures on wall, it's used to show an image for everyone to see. And as for the function, pictures and images can be used for drilling. For those of you who don't know what drilling is mainly a method of teaching where the teacher uh, repeating a word until the student understands or familiar with the word. For example, uh, when we implement the pictures and images, the example is like a teacher, when the teacher shows the whole classroom, a picture of a bird, and then it will evoke a response from the students of that is the picture of a bird, and the teacher will repeat it many times until the whole classroom understands and familiar with the word bird. And the next function of pictures inside classroom is for games. You can use it for many games, and it can also be used for better understandings for the whole classroom, because let's be honest, students the response from the students will be more positive if they are provided with pictures rather than just text. And the next function for pictures and images is ornamentation, prediction, and discussion. So we move on to the board, any kind of board, whiteboard, blackboard, or anything. So the board is the function the main function of the board is literally to write anything you need and you want. You can write almost anything you need and anything you want on the board in the front of the classroom. And it's mainly, we can use the board for notepad for writing things, and we can also use the board for explanation aid when we think the students need more help, and in terms of explanation we can write it on the board. And we can also use the board in front of the classroom for game board, like, I don't know, I've never done game board myself. And if you have a good artistic skills, you can also use the board for drawing picture frame. If you have artistic skills, as said. If you don't have any sort of artistic skill, don't. You risk yourself of being left at in front of the classroom by your students. And we can, lastly but not least, we can use the board for notice board. For example, when we assign for example a middle test, we can write on the board that the test will end in 15 minutes, and we write it on the board. And the next is, we move on to the computers. This is the year of 2020. Most students are familiar with the word computers in terms of learning. And for the teacher who want to utilize computers can be used to look for references, to provide the teacher with more teaching media. And yeah, that's it. Not only this, but yeah, you get the point. And we can also use computers to make teaching programs and testing programs. If you have experience in IT or some sort of technological things, you can use the computers to make a educational program for your classroom, for the students to use inside of your classroom. So it will make the learning more easier and more fun, because with the aid of computers, anything is almost very easy to utilize. And using computers, we can also exchange email or electronic mails between students and teachers. So the learning is not only face to face, where we have to meet directly directly meet our lecturers. We can type them an email and then ask them a question, or we can also use email for collecting assignments if you want to use it as a teacher. Because for me myself, I think collecting assignments via email is a lot easier, but the credibility is quite, I don't know, they can copy paste from the internet, so the credibility is quite low. And another usage of exchanging email is, we can exchange email to people around the world to communicate with them, to broaden our mind with many cultures and many languages. We can meet many friends and we can use them for our learning in English especially. So yeah, that's the usage of email exchange. And the other usage of computers is to access websites. If you have internet connection, you can use the internet connection to access websites. There are many there is an uncountable amount of websites in the internet that provides you with English educational learning. So search it, look it up yourself. There must be one at least one. If you search, for example, if you want to learn grammar, just type grammar or English grammar, and you can find it everywhere on the Google search. And you can click one of these websites and it will take you directly to the grammar sections. And last but not least, the usage of computers are for word processing, because word processing with computers are a lot easier than writing with your own hand. Because it will be, let's be honest, most people once they learn how to type in a computer will prefer typing in computer rather than writing with their own hand, because it's a lot easier typing in computers, and processing words in computers are also easier because there are so many programs that you can use. uh, yeah, that's it. Now we move on to the left hand side of the mind map. Over here we have overhead projector. Now for those of you don't know what overhead projector is, overhead projector is like a kind of projector. uh, it's like a box with light on top of it, which projects the anything that plays on top of it to the wall or any flat surfaces in front of it. So for example, if you put a piece of image on your overhead projector, on the projector of your overhead projector, it will directly project it onto the wall. And you can also use it to write anything you want, and yeah, I will explain it later on the advantages. Okay, so the advantages of using overhead projectors is, overhead projector, it can be used to show almost anything. If you place the transparent translucent thing on top of it, and it can be used to write anything you want on it, and it will show your writing directly onto the flat surfaces in front of it. It can also be a high quality since it doesn't render, if you understand the word render, because it doesn't need to render the picture first. The picture is rendered instantly, because if you place your writing on top of it, it will be directly, as I said before, it will be directly projected in front of you. And it can be also to cover some parts of the material that you don't use. For example, if you let's say that you have a sentence long, and you place it on top of the overhead projector, you can cover some of the words in the sentence, and you can use it for the students to guess what is the word that you covered. So you can be use it for predictions or something. And another example is if you have a picture or images, you can cover some of the image and let the imagination of your student answer your questions, any kinds of question. So that is the advantages of using overhead projector. And now we move on to the disadvantages of using overhead projector. It needs electricity because it's a mechanical machine, so of course it needs electricity. And because it's a mechanical machine, it also can suffer from technical failure, which I have to be honest, I've never seen an overhead projector before. But when I look it up in the Google, the machine is quite complex and big. So if it suffers from technical failure, yeah, you're done. You're done. You need to find someone who's capable of fixing it, because it's a mechanical machine. And another disadvantage is that not many teachers have it, even though it's very easy to use, and not many teachers have it. I honestly never seen any kind of overhead projectors in my life where I can directly write on it and it will be projected on the wall. I've never seen anything like it. I ever see a normal projector which you can plug into your laptop or computer, and it will show the content of your monitor to the flat surfaces on the wall. That's the only projector that I ever see. And the functions of overhead projector is to show teachers and students writing, because you can write on top of the transparent translucent thing on the overhead projector. So for example, if you want the students to make a compound sentence, for example, you can tell them, hey, go ahead and show us an example of compound sentence, and uh, he or she, the one who choose, can show his or her example on the overhead projector. Also, overhead projector can also be used to show images. Like I said before, you just place the images on top of the projector thingy and it will be projected onto the wall. And it can also be used for prediction, as I said also before. You can cover some of the parts of the, for example, if you have a sentence, you can cover some of the word in that sentence, and you can ask the student what is the word that you covered. So it will it can also be used for drilling students also. And it can also be used to create complex and stacking picture and text. For example, mostly it's used for complex subject. For example, let's use it for English. You already have some kind of text, but some of it are blank, and if you want to answer it, you can stack the word that you want on top of the text question that you already placed. So you can stack pictures on top of it, on top of each other. So the next English technology and other teaching equipments that I'm gonna explain is bits and pieces. From the words alone, you can already tell that these are small things that you can use inside your classroom. The first example is realia, which is mainly used for children. For those of you who don't know, realia is life-like items, not real items, but life-like items. For example, when we teach kindergarten students, we can't show them a whole car or a whole airplane. So we need realia to make them understand the concept of car and airplane by showing them a miniature realia of car or airplane, so they can understand it better. So yeah, it is mainly used for children. It can also be used for adults. For example, in biology classes, you can use the skeleton thingy. It's also count as realia. It's the realia of our skeletons. So yeah, you can use it for many classes, but it only mainly used for children. And the next is language cards, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's a cards about language. And as I said before, flashcards can be used for individual students. It also falls under this category. It's a language cards, because language cards uh, can have a category of various cards. So flashcards also falls here. And we have posters also. Posters are a language cards, even though the poster is quite big. I don't know why. And next we have questionnaire routes. The function of questionnaire routes is to evoke imagination. Questionnaire routes is like it's originally a mathematical object for I think it's for kindergarten students or elementary students, but it can also be used to evoke imagination. For example, we can use questionnaire routes when we want to tell a story of Little Red Riding Hood. We can show them a small red block, and we can tell the students that the small red block is a Little Red Riding Hood, and we can find a bigger rods, a bigger brown rods, and we can tell them that the bigger one is the wolf, And yeah, we can tell the story using question alerts to evoke imagination of our students. And next we have language laboratory, which is quite uh, quite not quite rare, but I've only seen in my entire life of I've only went to 3 language laboratory in my hometown. But it's good. It can it has a lot of advantages, let's be honest. uh, the advantages of using language laboratory is increasing learner motivation because they can focus on learning language inside the laboratory, because the laboratory is built for language students, language learning. And we can also, as a teacher, we can also use language laboratory to compare students to another, because from the main console we can hear, for example, 2 students uh, speaking the same text, and we can compare them to each other. There's a lot you can do on the main console as a teacher. And then another advantages as a teacher is we can get individual attention, because we can control whoever we want to hear from the main console. For example, if you need to hear that student, for example, you can tune in to his or her cubicle, what am I saying, booth, the listening booth, and we can listen to their speaking. And another advantages of using language laboratory is for learner training, because the language laboratory is built for language English, and not only English, and any other language training. And one of the most um, advantages of the language laboratory is for privacy, because we only hear ourselves in our headphones, and we do not need to worry about others hearing us speaking, because we are in our own listening booth with our headset, and that's it. That's a lot of privacy for yourself. And the function of language laboratory is R for drilling, because drilling is good inside language laboratory. We can also use for writing, especially corrective writing, because you can tell the students to write something, for example, and the teacher can give immediate response to the writing via the headphones. And we can also use it for pairing, when we need to pair students to one another. And we can we can plug the 2 students to the same recorder, and we can test them one by one. Also, the main function, I think listening here is the main functions of language laboratory, because you wear headphones. That's it. Okay, so it can also be used for reading, for example, if you need to. And also speaking is also the one of the main function of language laboratory, because you can provide them with microphones, and you can use it for parallel or non-parallel speaking, and you can tune into their booths via the main console, and you can hear their speaking from the main console. Also, it also can be used for repetition as well, similar like drilling. And last but not least, we move on to the materials for classroom use. Before, if you want to make homegrown materials for classroom use, there are 5 steps, five steps to for you to understand. The first is planning, second is trialing, evaluating, classifying, and record keeping. So first planning. You need to plan what you want to use and what you want to learn, because planning is basically the backbone of every activity. You need to plan what you want to learn and what you want to use. After your planning is done, you need to test it before you use it to your students, classroom students, by testing it first. So that's called trial and error. You need to test it before you use it on your main classroom, and after that you use it in your classroom. After when you use it in your classroom, you need to evaluate the strength and the weakness of your materials. And after you evaluate the materials from the class before, you need to classify it. uh, Classifying here means that you need to categorize the materials that you make before and what you already use in your classroom. For example, if you make materials about you make a listening podcast, for example, you put it in the listening section of your materials. That's called classifying. And the last is record keeping. After you've done everything, you need to keep record of your performance using that certain materials. So yeah, that's it. You keep the record of your performance using that materials. And that's it. That's my explanation of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 English technologies and teaching equipments. Hope you enjoy. Leave a like and subscribe if you want to. And last thing from me, stay safe. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.